All right, welcome to Season 2, Episode 10 of the Belfry Hockey Podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about goal scoring, and in particular, like the creativity of team goal scoring and the challenges that are upon scoring goals really at every level. It doesn't have to be just an NHL discussion. This is just goal scoring in general. The truth of the matter is the goalies are miles ahead of us. They've had Goalie Nation has been going for multiple decades with individual goalie coaches who are exclusively just studying goalies. They're studying their own goalie. They're taking their own unique stats on the goalie and what their effectiveness is. They have a whole metric that they think is important to being able to be an effective goalie. They can cater the development process to the specific assets and needs of the individual goalie. They study game patterns. They teach the goalies how to study game patterns. They understand how the technology of the stick works. They understand how the trajectory of the pucks work. They understand the geometry of the rink and the geography of the offensive zone, and they're able to maneuver and move their way through those areas, and manage their depth and their spacing, and most important, the line. They understand the line, and they have made it. They've prioritized getting square to the puck as a real primary objective of every shot that they can get. They want to beat the shooter to the line and make sure that they are square to the puck. And the more often that they do that, that just ups their opportunity to be able to make saves and more importantly, not only make the first save, but then control the rebound and control the game. And so as shooters, we're miles behind. We don't have enough sophistication in our shooting habits. We don't have the same level of understanding of ice geography and the geometry of shooting. We constantly put ourselves in really bad positions. We also let goalies off the hook by just throwing pucks randomly at the net, or we don't take bad situations, shooting situations, and try to improve them enough. And so the result of that is the collective shooting percentage is somewhere around 90%, and that's just not good. You're scoring 1 out of 10 if you're lucky, and that's just shots on net. And this was the big change for me when I started really studying shooting and indirectly studying goaltending from a shooter's perspective. The shooting percentage that is detailed for the goaltender and the shooter is only calculated based on shots registered on net. But there's a lot of shots that are taken and a lot of scoring chances that are created that do not result in a shot on net. And that if you calculated that into the actual goalie's shooting percentage, what would it be? Like, the goalie is probably operating somewhere around 96-97%. And that, when you're looking at trying to score 3 times out of 100 shots, like that's a daunting task. When they talk about Hall of Fame baseball players, they say, well, like if you can reach base 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer. And they think that that's like a big problem. Like, well, imagine trying to score 3 out of 100, and that makes you a Hall of Famer in the NHL. Like, think about that for a second. Yeah, he scores on 3% of his shots taken. When you look at it through that lens, you can see just how far behind the shooters actually are, and the sophistication of the way in which we approach the net and offense is very limited, and how quickly we limit the shooter when we are trying to score. So, for example, we will actively say to a shooter, just get it on net. Just shoot it on net. Anything can happen. Yeah, like, anything can happen. Usually an offensive zone face-off, or, like, the goalie saves it and we're exiting the zone. Like, anything can happen. What do you mean anything can happen? The probability of scoring is extremely low. And so, yeah, you throw pucks at the net the odd time, it's gonna bank off someone and go in the net. Fantastic. But what we're doing is we are degrading the intellect and the approach of the sophistication of the approach to scoring, when at a time of need we should be trying to elevate the player's level of understanding, is just my approach. We all tend to deduct it down to the lowest common denominator, which is extremely low, and in terms of the sophistication of scoring, when in fact I think we should be doing the opposite. The goalie is so far ahead, we have to close the gap in level of understanding, and the goalie understands shooting and goal scoring much more than we do, and as a collective. So, what I try to do in the book is just kind of highlight a few things, but I'm going to go through a few more of them here in detail, more detail, because I'm obviously very passionate about this topic, and I've dealt with a lot of guys who score a lot of goals, and my attitude towards them is always to try to improve their level of understanding. So in order to do that, I have to improve my level of understanding, not only just them, but goaltending and the geography of the zone and the way chances are created, and just how pucks go in the net. Just trying to have a better understanding of that, and then lead my players down more of those concepts to see if we can get more production. But one of the pet peeves I have is the way we calculate shooting percentage. I don't think it's alarming enough. I mean, you would think that when the goalie has a 90% save percentage, you would think that that's alarming enough, but it just isn't. It's now just accepted that, it's not 1 out of 10, and then the best shooters, in the history of the game, at least since we've been calculating it, are firing at 12 to 15, 16%. And that's just, again, that's just shots on net. That's not their total shots that they're taking. So when I calculate it out and I look at it, like some of my best players are, their shooting actual shot percentage is somewhere around 7-8%. It's really low. And they're the best in the world. Like, these guys are scoring 50, 60 goals every year, and they're still shooting at such a very low percentage. So what can we do? Like, where is the level of sophistication? Like, where do we need to, what do our shooters really need to understand? So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is that concept of expanding the net. So the net, as we know, is 4 foot tall by 6 foot wide. And so that's really that's the geometry of the net. And then there's times in which you are taking some net and you are eliminating it. We are eliminating it by the positioning of the goalie. Like, the goalie can actively black out a lot of the net by their position, especially if they're square to the puck. Everybody's seen a diagram where the goalie is in the net, and we're drawing lines out to where the puck is, and you see the geometry, and you're like, yeah, it's not a hell of a lot of net to shoot at. Then you see what, like, the shooter sees, and the shooter has this, like, shooter's illusion, which is because what the puck sees and what the player sees are two different things, so you have all that to go through. It's a lot to try to figure out, and so how to make what the puck sees and what you see, how do you make that true, and how do you manipulate and move the puck, how do you use angles and geometry to put the goalie at a little bit more of a disadvantage. Because for the longest time, we didn't really talk about it like this. So the goalie was getting so square to every puck, and we had a lot of on-stick shooters. And so just unless the goalie made a mistake, I mean, he was making the save. I mean, you're basically shooting it right at him. And so they're continually beating us to the spot. We don't do anything to change the angle, change the line, and so they win every time. And the more, like, when you get in the younger age groups, and when I see like junior players coming up and they're looking to to make jumps into pro hockey, you see like there's a real need to understand how to manipulate the puck line, because if you can't manipulate the puck line, you are just not going to score in the NHL. You're just not going to happen. Like a clear-sighted shot without any type of movement of the puck to change the goalie's line, it's going to be a save. It's near impossible to score like that. So the first thing is, how do we expand the net? So first thing that I think is, like, again, with on-stick shooting, if we just took that, not plays off the pass, guy has the puck, he's got it for more than two seconds or more, so now he's an on-stick shooter. It's probable you gotta assume that the goalie is on line. He's for sure on the line. So now what? Well, now you have to expand the net. So in order to expand the net, you're going to do a couple of different things. One is you're going to change the line. So goalie lines up on the line. You're going to now change that line by moving laterally one way or the other so that the goalie is now behind the puck. He's not exactly square to the puck. And then try to find those spaces inside of that new advantage, because you invited the goalie to the line, the goalie got to the line, now you quickly change the line and then shoot it into the anticipated place to where that new net that you've created is now available. And then you try to beat the goalie into that space by getting him to have to extend his arms, extend his legs, get more outside of his frame, which goalies like to get square to the puck, and then every puck just kind of hits them. They don't really have to extend their body because they're so square. But when you get off that line, now you're shooting for more net, you're expanding the net. Now the goalie has to reach. You create a slight evening of the odds, where you're giving yourself a little bit better chance. The other way to do it is to have another player who is off to the side of the net, where now the area in which the goalie has to be concerned about is now much bigger. It's not just 4 foot by 6 foot because you have a primary shooter, but I can now shoot it or shot pass to a guy off the side of the net, and he can redirect it. And his initial, before I passed it to that player is staring at an empty net. So the goalie's on me, and the goalie is set, and the goalie knows what his level of exposure is. Me, I take that goalie and I pass it to the next guy who's staring at an empty net. Now the goalie has to recover that position and try to get across to take away as much of that now gaping net as much as possible. That's expanding the net, learning how to expand the net. Sometimes we call it like shooting for sticks, it's redirects, it's net area stuff, it's falling off the heels of the goalie. It's all that. And all it is to take the goalie and put them at a disadvantage where the net now has expanded. So if you're playing against a goalie who's just lights out, like he's just on everything, one of the ways to expand the net is to have people off the side of the net and don't shoot it at the net. Shoot it off to the side of the net, have all these like rebounds off the side of the net. What does that do? Well, the goalie knows now that they have to move laterally to cover more net, so then they flatten out their depth. So if they were just worried about me coming down the flank, that's much easier. They catch the line, they stay on that line, and they understand the depth, and they can cut their angle the way they want. But when you have someone off the side of the net, well, now maybe it's better for them to play deeper in the net, conceding a worse angle against me, but improving their ability to move laterally, knowing that there's a threat on the backside, flattening the net. So that improves our shooting situation twofold. One, the goalie is conceding the best angle that they could get at by flattening out. They may not also be square because they might be cheating to be able to move laterally, so they've not only flattened out their depth in terms of how much space between them and the net, but they're also getting closer to turning their shoulders flat so that they can move laterally in anticipation of pucks getting shot off to the side of the net. So that's a way of taking some control over the goalie who is killing you because he's on and you don't have any real solutions and the defensive team is very good. One way is to learn to expand the net. The other issue with shooters is that we tend to shoot entirely too far away or far too close. And when you shoot far too close, the goalie doesn't have to cover the same amount of net. So what I mean by that is they can really shorten the net based on the trajectory of the puck. So if I'm shooting from 5 feet out of the top of the crease, so you have the top of the crease, 5 feet from that, this probably works out to be about 8 to 10 feet from the goal line. Okay, now you have the goalie who's at the edge of the crease or somewhere around the edge of the crease. And then now you have the shooter who's 4 or 5 feet off of that. How big, how tall is the net? Is the net now still 4 feet tall in terms of how much space the goalie has to cover? Well, the answer is no. Because the goalie really, in order to cover the top corner, would have to put their glove like under 2 feet at the from the puck. So puck is on the ice. I don't only have to cover the top corner. I would just have my glove, based on that trajectory, be under 2 feet. So I've taken the net as a shooter. I've taken the net and I've cut it in half from the height wise, from what the goalie would have to cover. So that's the trajectory of the puck is a real problem as it relates to shooting, because the closer you get, the more the less tall the goalie needs to be to cover the top of the net, because they can just get their hands out and now it can be a real problem. So a foot to 2 feet of net is all they really have to cover the top corner. Otherwise, anything higher than that is going to go over the net. So shooting trajectory is another issue, and we tend to shoot from too far away when you're the primary shooter or you don't have any other advantages. Other advantages meaning I have a ton of speed and I'm like driving the net and now I'm cutting across the net. So now the goalie has depth problems because of my speed. They have to move laterally because I'm going to go to the far side of the net. There's other factors involved in terms of where the defender is and how I'm protecting the puck. I might be, on my forehand, so I'm threatening that I'm going to shoot it the entire time. It makes it a lot more difficult. So aside from those situations, it's when you get tight to the net, it can be really problematic. You're really trying to shovel it under the goalie or kind of get it like maybe slightly over their pad, or squeak it in between their legs, or tuck it inside of an arm. That's really what you're looking at in terms of trying to score when you're in really tight as it relates to the trajectory of the puck and how problematic that can be as it relates to scoring. One of the things I think that we don't do enough of as teachers of scoring is we don't reward enough of the process in terms of being able to describe to or reward or encourage the shooter to create problems for the goalie. And I started to do this a little bit more in sessions that I run, is try to really teach the shooter how to create problems. So whether it be through speed, through angle, through speed and angle, through shot deception, through shot preparation, through secondary shot chances, through other people off the side of the net that are more problematic, to read the goalie in terms of where they are from a geographical perspective, and then try to get the goalies extended. So a goalie who's like reaching, or goalies who are sliding, or goalies who are who are too deep in their net, and then they aren't able to control the rebound because they have to cover too much space, and so they're just like knocking pucks down, but creates scramble situations. So rewarding shooters who are not necessarily going to score, and that not have it be a zero-sum game whether you either scored or you didn't score, but that have some gray area here where we're rewarding players for putting goalies in awkward positions, and the result of those awkward positions becomes a greater ability to score on second chance opportunities, etc. The more that our team is familiar with putting goalies in awkward spots and forcing them to make tough saves, the more that we should be encouraged to get to the net. Now, if you're a terrible shooting team, there's no sense having people at the net, because you're just going to be firing it in the goalie's chest, or the goalie's going to be able to cover the puck or control the rebound to the point where it's going to be difficult for your net presence to be able to do much unless it knocks off them. Otherwise, there's not a lot of opportunity for them to be able to really contribute. But if you're extending the goalie, you're putting them in an awkward position, you're forcing them to move, you're getting them to reach. They have to make saves where they're a little bit off balance. Those are rewarding things that now encourage us. If we can do that at a high percentage, we could then have a more valuable net presence, because there's going to be more pucks that are going to be there. So I think that understanding puck placement, the timing of shooting. So for example, like one real simple one is like a flash screen. So working off of a flash screen and understanding how to use a flash screen, those are areas in which you can find a way you're hiding the release, but you're also, moving the flash screen, and then you shoot on the butt of the flash screen. So now the goalie has to reach, and then the puck is going to land or rebound into the flash screen's position. So if the flash screen is going from right to left, well, now when the puck hits the goalie, it's rebounding to the left, so that that flash screen guy has a chance at the second puck. Like, that's sophisticated shot process, and we don't talk about that kind of stuff enough. So that's why I think coming up with a sophisticated team approach to creating problems for the goalie, and having it as a team approach means that now others are more inclined to get to the net area. Now I think you're giving yourself a little bit more of an opportunity, and that's, to me, that's stacking the deck maybe a little bit more in your favor, which is already stacked well against you because we're so far behind in terms of sophistication. Understanding the route tree. So this is a big one. Many shooters who are good shooters still tend to skate directly at the goaltender, and they don't change the line. So once the goalie has the line, if you watch this goalie, they never really have to move. The shooter comes in up over the blue line, they get to the top of the circle. Once the goalie has the line, the guy skates directly at the goalie. So the goalie just stands there, and then he still has nothing to shoot at. It doesn't matter how close he gets. It doesn't matter how far he gets. The angle is the angle. It just is what it is. And then actually the closer you get, the worse it is, because now you're fighting trajectory as well. And now you're really in trouble. So trying to figure out the route tree, when this is why in the book, I talk about the route tree quite a bit because I think it's a really important aspect of goal scoring is the routes that you take, because what the true objective of shooting is to get the goalie off the line and then create difficult shot situations, which then improve your ability to either beat them clean or put yourself in a second chance opportunity because you've created a difficult puck. So, whether it's slants or arcs or, down routes, or we have drive or inside out or walkout situations, like pass outs from the goal line out. Like, those are difficult situations that you can find routes to. And if you put yourself in those consistent routes, you're going to, again, put yourself on the right side of the math, where, you're unsettled, you take the right route, you change speeds at the right time, you preserve the space so you don't put yourself in a bad spot from a puck shot trajectory perspective. So you don't do that, and now you're creating a lot of problems. The goalie's now moving, sliding, reaching, all those things. That puts you in a better situation to either get him to miss the puck altogether and you score, or if he does make the save, it's not as controllable, giving you second chance opportunities. And then the more you do that, the more inclined second people are to arrive at the net, because the consistency we have of creating difficult pucks in our shooting makes it more realistic. They're probably going to be a loose puck here, so I'm more incentivized to go there to the net. A lot of the reason why people don't go to the net is because, one, it's hard to get there, and two, you're going to take some physical contact by getting there, and then most of the time you go there, you're taking all that contact for nothing because the shooter sucks. He's terrible. He can't get you a puck that can even remotely be even possible that you would even have any real factor in there. So you take a cross check for no reason. But if we become more sophisticated in our shooting, the routes, and how we create these difficult shots, well, then now, of course, I'm going to be more willing to pay that price to score, because more often than not, when I get there, there's going to be opportunities, or my contribution to the play is going to lead to scoring. And I think that that's a big reason why we can't get the net presence that we want. And like, net presence is different now. We used to want a guy just standing there and he just take cross check after cross check, try to wear it like a badge of honor. Now we don't need to do that. We're rotating people in and out, and we have a net presence, but it's not the same guy. It's different people. They're coming and going on and off the net. But now it sounds great, but you got to get there with the right time, and you get there at the right timing, and the shooter has to deliver the puck, and that's what makes it difficult. So understanding the routes that are important to take, then why those routes are important and what impact that those routes have on goalie movement. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to unsettle the goalie's feet. Goalies want to move to get square to a puck and settle their feet so that they can take the save. The more that they're moving when you're shooting, the more unsettled their feet are, the harder it is for them to make saves. So a lot of the more sophisticated on-stick shooters will invite the goalie to the line and then change it. And I think that is something that we should be teaching at a very young age, and understanding what those lines are. The other line that's geographical lines on the ice that are important is the top of the circle and the dots. Because from the top of the circle to the dot, that's a movement line. A goalie has to move. If you're coming down from the top of the circle and you're going down towards the dot, if you do that with speed, the goalie has to move. They have no choice. They have to move because they're trying to stay on the line. So it's a down route. The goalie has to move. Now, once you get below the dot, now they're transitioning to the post. So there's a whole movement thing that goes with the post. And they have all kinds of strategies. The VH, the reverse VH, all that stuff. They're trying to find their way into this post. And they're transitioning in there. In that transition, there's opportunity for us if we understand, one, that they're transitioning, two, where the holes are, where we could shoot it, when the timing is for when we could shoot it, when the goalie's off at a position that's weak, this is an opportunity for us to be able to, again, create a difficult puck. It's not about scoring. Like, we're past that. We're scoring 3%. It's not about scoring. It's about creating difficult shot saves to then improve maybe the next puck. That's really where we're at. Let's walk before we run here. Then the other part about it is playing in the goalie's gaps. So if you ever watch a goalie warm up, one of the staple warm up drills that they have is they'll start on a post. They go from one post to the other post. Then they'll come out to the elbow of the crease. Then they'll move to the middle of the net, like at the crease. Then they go over to the other elbow of the crease, and then they go back to the post. So it's like 5 points: the post, the elbow of the crease, the middle, the other elbow, the other post. 5 points, and they do this like a gazillion times. Like, if they've done it once, they've done it millions and millions and millions of times. So what I talk about is the goalie's most comfortable in those 5 positions. So why are we shooting when the goalie is the most comfortable? We should be trying to shoot in the gaps. So what I was talking about before in the dead angle is from the goalie is at the elbow of the crease. You get below the dot, the goalie is now transitioning back to the post. So we should be shooting in that gap. When we are coming down like the dot line, for example, you're going to get into a spot in which the prime place where you want to shoot is right at the elbow of that crease. Well, the goalie is very comfortable moving and stopping in that position. They've done it so often. It's like second nature. They can do it in their sleep. Some of them do. So now what you want to do is you want to invite him to that space and then get him to try to come off that and move to the middle, but shoot it when he's in the movement from that elbow piece to the middle. That's when he's most vulnerable, because they don't stop necessarily in those spots as habit. They stop in 2 spots. We need to shoot in between. So trying to shoot or make plays in those gaps, I think, is another layer of sophistication we should add to shooters' mindset when they have the puck on their stick. We talked about using the screen effectively. The other one is using the back wall. I'll end on this one because I could talk about this all day. But on the back wall, so drive the goalie back into his post, make him look behind him to the least amount of ice, change the conditions of what's going on in front of him, and then make a pass out to somebody who's in a threatening position in front. So now the goalie has to take their eyes, go from behind the net, track the puck. They got to get off the post, try to find their depth, try to find the line of the puck, and then now as soon as we're getting it, we're on first touch shooting it. And now the reaction time for them is going to be much more difficult, and they're in motion. So the plays from the back wall out, to me, we don't do enough of that. And one of the things that I think is on the pass receiver, we don't pop, like the offensive stick checks, popping sticks, so that, like right now we have a passer who's trying to pass a tape-to-tape pass to a shooter who's trying to shoot it, fair enough, but there's sticks in the way. So the non-puck carrier should be also responsible for popping a stick, so when the puck, it just gives that passing lane, so the guy doesn't have to feather a puck through. He just passes it to you. You pop the stick and be able to pop it and shoot it. That gives us a chance that wouldn't have been there in the past. Thinking like that, we don't do enough of, and I think that that's restricting. And in terms of creativity and team scoring creativity, we have miles and miles and miles to go. What I'm talking about is like 10% of the things that I've been looking at in terms of shooting, but it gives you maybe some ideas on some things that you can do with your players individually and then also collectively. So it's a great topic. There's a lot of things just in here that we've talked about, and I'll probably do another one of these to kind of get into even more topics, because I think it's that important, and we got to find a way to to close the gap of sophistication of understanding of scoring, and because the goalies are miles ahead, and we have to close that gap if we have any chance, because otherwise the percentages are going to get worse and worse and worse.